Good morning, everyone. Thanks again for joining our session today. My name is Simon Rodriguez. I'm here with you today also to share more insights about sales leadership and going through the journey of complex sales. I'm based in Calgary, Western Canada, and I've been working in the sales industry, technical sales, for over 18 years now. This is actually a session show we have sharing ideas, best practices, and experiences, and we hope to contribute to your journey, obviously, as you grow as a sales leader. So with me today, we have Wajid Ali. Wajid is also obviously sharing the podcast with me today, his partner, and also sharing his insights. And I'll hand it over to Wajid for an introduction. Over to you, Wajid.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Good morning, whoever is has tuned in. We're really excited today for this session. As Simon said, it's about sales leadership and our journey. In fact, what we have learned across throughout our career and what insights we can share here with our audience. So I'm really excited, Simon. Excited, and I'm looking forward to have a conversation with you and let's start.
Excellent. So I think we can certainly dive in, and we have been basically going through multiple sessions, understanding the complexity of a sales process, right? Going from the complete sales journey and meeting customers where they are, understanding all the different buying stages. And today we wanted to focus in particular on one topic, which, although we have mentioned the topic, we haven't perhaps discussed most of the details, why it's important, and how we can go about building a healthy sales pipeline. So that's today's topic. We want to share more about the importance of having a healthy pipeline. How can we estimate our pipeline and why it's important in sales? And we wanted to start probably with that question for you, Wajid. Like, what's your perspective, your take on the importance of having like a healthy, stable sales pipeline when it comes to forecasting and estimating, obviously, the revenue for any type of business?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, it's a really interesting topic that you have chosen today, Simon, because as a sales team, it's our main KPI. It's our main job to improve the revenue, to improve the bottom line, and to make the business more healthier. And of course, pipeline or a healthy pipeline is the way to begin, right? So in order to make a healthy pipeline, what does a salesperson or a sales team, what does a sales team can do? How can they contribute? What is their role? And and how does it impact the overall health of the business? It could be a smaller organization, it could be a larger corporation. But if you don't have healthy pipeline, then of course there's something wrong, or there's an indication that we are not going with the market trends. In order to develop a healthy pipeline, I guess the best place to start with is to understand, first of all, understand the industry, which industry you're serving, understand your customers. That's where I will start from. So as a salesperson, if you're in any role in any industry, the best way to start with is first understand yourself, understand where do you stand, what is your current revenue model, who is your customers, who is your potential prospects, what pain points you are touching on, and then who are the people that potentially you could serve. So you have current customers, which is already what you're serving, and then there's a larger untapped market potentially which you can serve or you may serve. So you have to look at the larger, bigger picture, and that's where I will start from.
Yeah, I think you raised a really good point there with it is interest also on understanding the data and the quality, right, of that pipeline, right? Because ultimately, and let's put this as a context. Let's say you're aiming as a sales rep for a specific quota this fiscal year, right? Let's say your quota is 1 million, right?
Mhm.
So industry kind of a regular standards is you'll have at least three times that number as a healthy pipeline, right? If your quota is 1 million, you should have at least 3 million in leads opportunities in terms of your pipeline, at
Right.
least as a lead. Now, the other thing there, which is important, is by having a pipeline, you can also analyze that data and historically understand, like if that pipeline it's bringing quality leads as well, right? Because ultimately, the way you nurture that pipeline will translate into how effective your closing rate, your revenue, your translation from converting, let's put it this way, converting from lead to business, right, to an order, it's gonna be. So that's, I think it's important as well, because just having like a larger pipeline just for the sake of having a large number in the pipeline, it won't, it won't work. It needs to
That's
be
right.
obviously quality leads that at some point will convert or have a
Yep.
high probability to convert into business. And the other thing there, which I think is important, is normally when you look at pipeline and lead generation, right? You might have multiple sources, marketing being one of the key areas, which through webinars, campaigns, etc., they will bring, let's say, organic leads to your pipeline. Then the sales rep outreach as well, obviously
Right.
through prospecting. So, is as a sales rep, I think you need to leverage all the tools that you have available to bring that healthy pipeline and to build that pipeline, right? So I think that's one of the key messages as well. Is ultimately as a sales rep, you're owning that account, and it's your main responsibility leveraging all different tools to bring more leads that ultimately can actually translate or convert into business. So I think that's an important topic. And now, what about one thing also is forecasting, right? Like we know that forecasting is very, it's not an easy task, because deals can shift in timing, deals can change, budgets can get put on hold. But what's your take in terms of forecasting and the importance of having kind of a healthy pipeline, and in terms of properly forecasting for the quarter or for the year? Any takes, any thoughts on that front, Rajit?
Yeah, no, I think you mentioned that in you kind of summarize it. I guess the best way to start is, of course, as I said, you need to understand what the market is, what the market trends are, where do you stand currently, and then from there you sort of start building your pipeline. But the quality of the data, the quality of the leads that you're getting, it could be, as you said, from your marketing, it could be from um, based on your own research. If you don't have a marketing team, and you sort of in a situation where you are doing your own research, which most in most cases you got to do it, because that's your primary job as a salesman or as a sales leader. But make sure that those leads are kind of qualified, and they do fall into the certain category that you potentially can serve at the moment, or you potentially may serve sometime in the future. So that's where you begin. But in terms of understanding on how you can develop a healthy pipeline, again, we need to go back to the basics, right? And as you said earlier, if you're serving a market and you're building up a pipeline, once you qualify a healthy lead or healthy opportunity, and that's been qualified, you got to make sure that your pipeline is built. At least if you're having a current customer base and you're basing your revenue off the current customer base, current logos, then you got to make sure that at least it's three times of your target. So you got to look for opportunities which could potentially turn into sales for the fiscal year. It could be a fiscal year, it could be the quarter. Again, every business runs differently, and there are different business rhythms. But if you're looking for adding new logos, new customers, potential customers into your pipeline, then I guess that multiplication ratio needs to be more than three times. I guess I would recommend, and based on what I have seen and what I have learned, could be sometimes from 4 times to 6 times, right? So if you're looking at adding new logos, you got to look into potentially having a pipeline which is 4 or 6 times of your target. So if you have a target of 1 million, you got to make sure that you have opportunities built up for minimum 4 million to 6 million, somewhere in that range, and then potentially you could turn them into sales in that particular fiscal year. That's what my take is at it. Again, we can drill down further and we can talk about it more length, but I'll turn it back to you and see what are your thoughts, Simon.
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting insight, and it's going into the details, right? As you highlighted, is when we talk about a pipeline, we cannot see pipeline as a generic, let's say, data, right? Because as you mentioned, based on that, so either like most of the leads are as like a new logos or existing customers that you are either upselling, expanding. So it based on that the data, you can also define what's your ratio, right? I think at least 3 times will be kind of the minimum. And then to your point, right? If either a new market, new territory, new logo, that rate obviously decreases a little bit. Therefore, you need a higher a number of leads, right? In terms of a pipeline. So yeah, I think that's important, and that's kind of the uniqueness of the like not all obviously sales territories are the same or industries, etc. Right? So understanding quite well where you are situated right now, what's your current state. I think you mentioned that at the beginning, understanding where you are today and where you want to go. So having that clear understanding of the market, the region, the obviously the industry, that will help you obviously build that ideal pipeline. Because we were also talking about the forecasting, and it's essential, right? Because in order for the business to quantify a growth, to see how they're obviously increasing revenue, they need to forecast, they need to plan that. And we understand obviously like a pipeline wouldn't be 100% accurate in terms of helping forecast, right? Like you won't convert necessarily a specific percentage, but it will give you an indication of what you can expect at the end of a quarter. So I think that's important because, yeah, I think in sales is also essential being data driven and metric driven as well, understanding those KPIs as you mentioned initially, and yeah, pipeline is one big part of that. Now, going back to the basis, you were sharing something with you that I wanted to go back to. Is you said starting with the basics, right? And one of the basic, I'll say, strategies or tactics to, let's say, to build the pipeline is prospecting, right? Like as a sales leader, as a sales executive, you go and prospect, try to bring new leads, reach out to new customers. So what are your thoughts and anything you can share in terms of best practices for prospecting, and how you can translate that prospecting activity into pipeline, right? What's kind of the correlation? And if you can share any, like general experience you might have in terms of prospecting. I know people that they like to prospect, they set a block of hours, weekly or every day, 1 hour, 2 hours, just for prospecting, outreach. So what can you share with the audience here about prospecting and the importance for building a pipeline?
Yeah, that's a good point, Simon. We are all living in a digital world, right? So we have a lot of resources that we could utilize for prospecting. Uh, some of the best practices. I will come back. I will touch upon the timing and how much time do you need to allocate. But the resources you could use LinkedIn as a great tool to start with. If you're in an industry, you can find a lot of prospects just by searching on LinkedIn. Of course, then you can. Another good tool is you got to use that you could use is Google search. Google is really helpful to understand your industry and also to look for some key leads from that industry. Beside that, you gotta utilize some of the networking opportunities that you could get from attending conferences. It could be local conferences, maybe in person, maybe virtual. Attending webinars. There are a bunch of free webinars available almost in every industry, which you could attend without any cost associated with it. The only cost is the time. So you got to spend your time, you got to invest your time, and that is the greatest investment you could do as a salesperson. And beside that, I guess another interesting insight is while you're doing that research and trying to find prospects for yourself, I would recommend whoever is listening this podcast, I would recommend to invest some time in yourself as well. Try to find some good books that are related to your field. It could be some good sales books that a lot of your peers can recommend. I'm not going to name any book here, but there's a lot of books that are available for the sales people who are interested to invest in themselves. And then once you kind of check all these basic boxes, the next thing is, which you kind of touched earlier on, is how much time do you need to allocate. Again, it's really hard to pinpoint how much time do you need. Every person, every individual is different, every industry is different. But as a rule of thumb, I guess you need to have at least minimum 1 to 2 hours every week. I mean, that's the minimum, right? 1 to 2 hours every week blocked in your calendar, only allocated for prospecting. Again, I'm reiterating, it's just the minimum, bare minimum, at least 1 to 2 hours for your prospecting. The more you could put your time aside for prospecting, the better. But if you don't have anything like 1 to 2 hours in your calendar, then you are missing something big, some great opportunities. So at least use 1 to 2 hours minimum weekly to start with. I will turn it back to you, Simon, but these are my takes on prospecting.
I will certainly agree with at least allocating a couple hours a week. I mean, there are different approaches depending on how people go about prospecting, right? But at least allocating a couple hours, and also I think the importance not only of outreach through LinkedIn or through contacts, but also the as you highlighted, the networking opportunities, right? Events, conference, industry. Events or opportunities as well. The other thing that I think is it really helps as well in terms of building credibility industry, or let's say increasing that industry network, is having opportunities to share kind of a thoughts in terms of thought leadership events. If you have the opportunity to speak about a particular subject that you can share insights. If, let's say, if you're in a particular industry that you perhaps have some technical insights that you can share, or some let's say even project management best practices. So trying to contribute as well into that industry, that also give you that opportunity to connect with more prospects, and therefore obviously helping you build that network, and ultimately also nurture that pipeline, right? So taking
Yeah,
advantage of multiple opportunities, right? And I think to your point, nowadays there are multiple platforms, not only in person, but there are multiple events that we can join obviously remotely. We can contribute
right.
through papers, presentations, and so that's also good in terms of lead generation, something that can help.
Can I
And
can
that's
I uh, can I ask you a question there?
yeah.
Uh, and I think it's very much related to this whole topic of prospecting and developing your network and developing your, call it, your own thought leadership. How important it is, how important the communication is, and how important role does it play in terms of how effectively do you communicate? Not in terms of, I guess, of course, language is a big piece of it, but also how fluent you are in communicating your value proposition, right? What's the role of communication, and what do you think, how much role does it play?
Yeah, no, that's I think like when you look at strategic communication, I think it is paramount in terms of building that connection, and properly articulating your message, right? What you're trying to convey into that value that ultimately will resonate with that prospect, with that customer. So I think the ability to properly articulate an idea,
Hmm.
use case, customer success story is very important, right? So I think that's a good point. Ensuring that you have a clear understanding of that use case, of that value, that benefit the customer is getting, and most importantly, what is it that you're solving and why should they care, right? Because you can go on a talk, say, okay, well, we can do this, and this is why, but ultimately, we need to focus on the customer as opposed to focus, let's say, on what we bring to the table. So
So
focusing
as
on
as a
how,
sales
yeah.
as a sales, no, all good points, but I just want to drive it further and just take a little bit deeper into this communication piece. Do you think, as a salesperson, not think, I would say, let me rephrase it to you, would you recommend for a salesperson what percentage of talking and what percentage of listening, if you were to recommend? Which one is more
Yeah,
valuable?
I will say certainly the 80 rule. I think we should focus on listening at least
Right,
80% of the time, right? And then sharing our insights at 20% of the time. I think the more we listen, the more we can get insights, understand the customer position, perception, and expectations too. So I think that's
right.
yeah,
As
that's
as the saying as the sayings go, you have two ears and one mouth, right? So
yeah, yeah, no,
more listening
exactly.
and less talking, right?
That's right. And by the again, the more you listen, I guess the more you can understand as well from different, and not only the I'll say the verbal communication, but the I'll say the nonverbal communication too, right?
Mhm.
Because as you listen, and then you also share your insights, but you can also observe. And I think that's a good thing to know, because probably a misconception could be what you did, and for everyone in the audience, like sometimes we think that, okay, well, we should listen more, right? But
Right.
active listening, I think, goes beyond just listening for the sake of listening. It's just
Sure.
really seeking to understand what's being said and what's unsaid, right? So what wasn't said in that particular discussion. So connecting the dots, and in my view, that's the valuable listening, right? Just finding, trying to get insights, understand, what the customer shared, what they didn't share, and potentially why, and asking questions. I think once you go with open-ended questions that invite the
Right.
prospect, the customer, to share more, that's when you can, certainly get more valuable insights, right? So yeah, I think those are really good points. Is focusing on that
Right.
active listening. That goes also if even if you're in a conference, an event, that you have those networking opportunities. Same, I'll say, same approach, right? Trying to
Right.
understand their perspective and see ultimately how can you bring value to that customer, to that prospect, in some
No,
cases.
all excellent points. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Active listening is something which is truly valuable for any sales person or any sales role. And active listening is what it gives you the ability and the opportunity to understand more about the customer, what is said and what's not said. So what is between the line, and how do you connect those dots? And once you develop that skill, then you are better placed to effectively communicate at the same time, because now at that point you have understood about the industry, you have understood, taken, captured really good insights from your potential client or potential existing customer, and you can utilize those insights to leverage towards the benefit of your customer, but at the same time you leverage it to your personal and business development, right? Now I'll take it a step further, because as a sales leader we all see that our team members are at different levels in the skill set, right? Some people are, call it, way ahead, some people are sort of in the middle, and then there are people who are still starting, or they may need some more nurturing of the skills. Now, if you have like a sort of a diverse team which has mix the skill set of people in, what would you recommend to that kind of sales leader to effectively utilize these resources?
I will say that certainly the more perspectives do you have within a team, an organization, I think you certainly enrich your team, right? Let's say if you're talking about a sales team and you have people from different skill sets, perspective, backgrounds, and even industry experience, ultimately, in my view, that help enrich the overall culture of the sales organization, right? Because
Right.
again, the more perspective you have, the more you can, let's say, the better you can
Right.
understand, even on the customer side. So I think understanding that we all have, to your point, right, like different strengths and weaknesses as well. So in my view, a sales leader is all about understanding and maximizing those, let's say, those
Hmm.
strengths that a player might have, and working with them on those things that they might improve, right? So
Right.
it's important for a leader to understand that you have, as you mentioned, like probably different skill sets within an organization, different levels of experience, of even approaches as well, right?
Hmm.
So getting, in my view, like getting the best out of their strengths and then working with them on the things that might need improvement is important. But that needs also like a unique approach, right? You cannot use or have the same conversations with every single team member if they have. So you can adjust obviously the those discussions and
Right.
those interactions to get the most from the team as well and for the team, because ultimately
Right.
you have a shared vision, you have a common mission as a sales team, and you
Right.
can benefit, certainly you can benefit from the different perspective and different skill sets. And ultimately, if you think that perhaps you have maybe a couple of team players that might need to level up a particular skill, giving them the opportunity to obviously improve those areas, right? I think that's something that can help too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's what I was trying to understand, because we all come from different skill set. We all have our own strengths and weaknesses, which we need to improve upon. So as a sales leader, once you identify who has got what on your team, and how can you leverage those strengths to benefit the rest of the team members, right? That's a skill set that a leader needs to have. And once you're able to capitalize on those strengths, I guess, to your point, it's gonna help the entire team grow, and entire team can get benefit from different level of skill sets. Now, I think we started this podcast on how we can build a healthy pipeline and what are the key recommendations or best practices. I think we are about to wrap up in about next 2 minutes, but I will go back to the initial conversation where we started on the pipeline. So once you have built up a healthy pipeline, right? To your point, you may not end up closing all those deals, but if you have a 3 or 4 times uh, of your target, if you have a pipeline which is 3 or 4 times larger than your given target, then the chances are that you will hit your quota, or you will exceed your quota. But sometimes it becomes really challenging in some of the industries to build up on the pipeline, right? And that's where the leadership roles come in. So leadership, as a sales leader, we need to get together with our salespeople, with our sales team, and maybe one-on-one, like individually, identify what are the challenges they're facing, and then we need to work together to ensure that our teams feel uh, they have the sense of belonging, and also they feel motivated. And some of the organizations, in the sales role, it becomes so challenging that people start feeling very much isolated, and they start feeling that they're left behind. So as a sales leader, I'm just kind of reiterating here, as a sales leader, it's our job to get in with our sales team one-on-one, and understand what their challenges are, and then how we can build up some kind of call it training, coaching, a mentorship or some kind of mechanism where we can work together with them in building up a healthy pipeline. It's a process. It's going to take some, sometimes it's real quick, but sometimes it's going to take time. As a sales leader, we need to have patience and consistency and perseverance, and that's what we need to uh, relay and communicate to our teams. What is your take on this one, Simon? I know we are kind of over time here, but let's wrap it up.
Oh, well said, Wajid. I think you properly summarized kind of the key things. I will just re-emphasize the importance of consistency, right? I think that's something we mention on each session. Every session is the importance of building that discipline, that consistency, and the follow-up. I think you build the pipeline, but then you have the task of following up with those leads and keeping
Right.
that obviously that discipline around all the data and then obviously getting that into booking opportunities in business, right? So yeah, consistency. I will reemphasize the importance of that, and ultimately that will help you usually translate or convert into business for your organization. So I think with that we cover most of the topics today. We will certainly encourage you to share additional insights and additional topics of interest, so we can go and dive into those new topics. With that, I think we can close the session for today. I'll hand it over to you, Wajid, for any final thoughts.
Yeah, very well said, Simon. To the audience, if you have any questions, any comments, as usual, please feel free to leave it in the comment section below. You can reach out to both myself and Simon on what do you want to hear from us in upcoming podcast, upcoming episodes. On that, have a nice weekend, and we'll get back with a new topic next week. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.